Hi, today I'm on the Buchan coast at the Sea Cliffs, and the plan is to walk into a nice little spot that's got an amazing bit of World War II history, and with a bit of luck do a camp there. Now, it's quite a busy spot. Back down there behind me is Slains Castle, or New Slains Castle, and just down the coast that way is the Bullers of Buchan, and between them is a very busy coastal path that's served by 2 car parks, and this place gets very busy, and because of that I've left it till quite late in the day, later than I normally go out. It's now 8 o'clock in the evening, and I'm hoping that all the tourists and walkers have gone home and I should be able to camp here without any interruptions. So I'll spin the camera around and I'll walk into the spot where I'm planning on camping. On the 14th of April 1945, at first light, the lobster fishing boat, the Reaper, quietly slipped out of the port of Peterhead under blackout conditions and headed south here along the coast to start pulling its lobster pots. Now, around midday, the skipper of the Reaper, Alex Stephen, thought he saw something in the water very close to these rocks here, and he brought his boat very carefully in to take a look. Now, as the Reaper neared the rocks, the crew on board could see 3 rubber dinghies full of injured mariners. The boat's crew quickly jumped to action and they hauled the semi-conscious mariners out of the water into the safety of their boat. They turned their boat around and headed for Peterhead. Now, the rescued mariners were not very chatty, and the Reaper's crew just assumed that they were Norwegians who had survived the wreck of a boat that had been sunk the day earlier. It wasn't until they returned back to port that they found out the true identity of the people they had rescued. They had in fact found the captain and some of the crew of a sunken German U-boat that had sunk 8 miles off the coast here. 48 hours earlier, U-1206 was patrolling 8 miles offshore just north of Slains Castle. They were there to target the Allied supply convoys that regularly headed up and down the North Sea off the east coast of Scotland. Now, on the 12th of April, U-1206 developed engine problems, and due to low batteries, had to come to the surface to undertake repairs. Now, after a short while, the submarine had to submerge because they realised there were sitting ducks on the surface. So the boat commander, Carl Schlitt, decided to submerge to 200 feet and to carry on repairs. On the 13th of April, things went from bad to worse. It seems that during repairs, a valve in a toilet at the rear of the boat failed, allowing seawater to flood into the battery compartment of the U-boat. The submarine did an emergency surface and began to rapidly undertake emergency repairs. Whilst on the surface again, they were spotted by a naval trawler, the William Brady, which was escorting a patrol of minesweepers. The trawler flashed a confirmation signal to the U-boat, and when they sent back the wrong security reply, the trawler decided to attack. The stricken sub fired its remaining torpedoes in the direction of the trawler, which went off just short of the boat. Commander Schlitt gave the order to evacuate the sub, and the U-boat went down with an explosion that was observed from the William Brady. After a safe period of time, the smaller boats from the convoy moved in to search for survivors, and during darkness and very windy conditions, 3 dinghies containing 10 survivors were recovered and taken to Aberdeen. Now, unseen by the searching vessels of the convoy, 3 remaining dinghies were blown by the strong winds towards the jagged coastline. Now, fortunately for them, they were spotted the following morning by the crew of the Reaper. 3 of the sub's crew, Hans Berghauer, Karl Koren and Emil Kupper, were killed when their small boat was smashed into the rocks. But 13 sailors were saved by the Reaper's crew and taken back to port. Now, when the Reaper got back, Captain Schlitt and his crew were marched to the police station in Merchant Street, where they were given a hot meal and put in a cell for the night. And the next morning, they were put on a train to London, where they were interviewed about their activities off the east coast of Scotland. Now, Captain Carl Schlitt saw the rest of the war out in a prisoner of war camp in Holt Whistle in Northumberland. And after the war, Captain Schlitt became the district administrator of the region of Odenburg in Holstein in Germany. And in 1987, he returned to Peterhead to meet up with the young skipper who saved him from being bashed to death on the granite rocks of Dunbury Head. Carl Adolf Schlitt died on April the 7th, 2009 at the age of 90. He outlived all of his U-boat crew. Now, for many years, U-1206 lay at the bottom of the sea off the rocks here, and it was known by many people in the town. The story was well known, and many recreational divers in the area were absolutely itching to find this U-boat. After many years of fruitless searches and countless dives, in 2012 the U-1206 was found and dived by a group of divers out of Peterhead. It was found at 5718.246 north, 0135.832 west, in 86 metres of water, laying with a 45-degree list to port on a flat, sandy seabed. Now, shortly after the crew's surrender, an alternative story about the sinking of U-1206 started to circulate around Peterhead, and the story has pretty much persisted ever since. Now, U-1206 was one of the last U-boats ever commissioned during World War II, and it was fitted with a very high-tech, high-pressure underwater toilet. It was designed to be able to be flushed whilst the boat was submerged without actually having to capture the liquid waste. Now, because it was such a complicated system, one of the crew members was actually trained to operate the flush, and he was obviously known by all the crew as the shitter man. Now, the story goes that the captain on board U-1206 was a vain man, and he decided to take a dump while the engines were being repaired. And, well, he didn't want one of his underlings to flush the toilet for him, so he had a go at flushing the toilet, and in the process broke a valve which let water in and subsequently sunk the boat. So the story went around that the boat was sunk by an error of the captain whilst flushing the toilet. Now, the official loss report that was actually intercepted by the Allies coming back from the U-boat would back up this story. It said that they'd had an engine failure and a flooding due to a failure of a water valve in a toilet. So the actual captain's loss report kind of backed up this story that was going round. So later in Captain Schlitt's life, he was asked by a family member if this story was true, and he went on to tell her the true story. And the story goes that they did indeed have serious engine problems on U-1206, and after 2 days of trying to repair the engines, they realised that they were not going to be able to fix them. So the captain called a meeting with all of the officers on board, and the officers decided that they wished to surrender to the British authorities. Now, they surfaced the boat and began to evacuate into the dinghies, and just before the captain stepped off the boat, he went inside and opened a toilet valve to flood the boat. He then sent the loss report and they evacuated. Now, he created the fictitious story of the broken toilet valve to match up with the loss report he'd sent, but also, he said, to protect his crew from any ramifications, any kind of retaliation from other Germans in prisoner of war camps. So actually, it wasn't an accident. Captain Schlitt purposely scuttled the boat by opening that valve. Now, I hope you enjoyed that little story about the submarine wreck. I'll put a link to the Buchan Shipwrecks page in the description, and that'll take you to the web page and the YouTube page of the divers who actually dived that sub for the first time. And there's a lot more information. In fact, you know, I must thank Jim and all of the divers there for giving me permission to use some of their footage and use some of their pictures. But they did an awful lot of research in finding this. It took them years and years to find it, and their page is well worth a visit to see the numerous wreck dives that they do off the coast here. I think now I'm going to go and set up camp. So let's get camp set up and I'll tell you a little bit more about what I'm camping in tonight and what I'm going to eat. Well, I've had a look around for somewhere to pitch my tent and I don't have a lot of choices. The ground round here is very steep. So what I've got is a very small area here, which I think I might just be able to get my tent in. But I'm going to have to be careful getting out of it because that's over the other side. Yeah, no sleepwalking in the night. But I think I might just be able to get my tent here. Now, the forecast is for heavy rain and high winds overnight coming from the southwest, which is kind of that direction over there. So, over there even. And I bought the Alpkit Tetri with me. It's a bit of a heavy tent, but it's really good in high winds. But I'm not sure if it's going to fit here. It's quite a big tent. So I will spare you the time lapse of me trying to remember how to put this tent up, and I'll bring you back when it's up. So I'll see you in a minute. Well, that's a tent up. A little bit more eventful than I'd planned, but anyway, it's up now. Nearly lost it over the edge at one point. It's quite blowy, but here we go. I think in an ideal world I'd have had the door at the other end, but the chances of me stumbling coming out of the tent and plummentos down that great big cliff were too great. So I've got my wind into the door, but I believe that the wind's going to swing around a little bit, so it'll be kind of hitting more towards the side. Should be all right. But well, I'm going to get my kit set up and I'll show you what I've got for my bed. I don't like using the word sleep system, but anyway, my air mattress and my sleeping bag, because I've got a new air mattress and I want to tell you about it because I'm pretty impressed with it. So I shall just get in the tent and I'll show you what I'm sleeping on and in tonight. So I have got a new sleeping mat. I've been looking for a winter sleeping pad for a long time and I couldn't bring myself to spend the money that Thermarest Neo Air winter pad is. I mean, I appreciate that they're very good quality things, but I'm not spending, you know, £300–400 on a sleeping mat because, quite frankly, I break sleeping mats and yeah, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So when Flextail started talking about making an R09 rated sleeping pad, it kind of piqued my interest. So about a year ago, Flextail did a kind of GoFundMe, Indiegogo crowdfunder to do this research into an R9 pad, and yeah, I kind of put my money in. I can't remember how much I paid, about 60 quid. I was one of the early birds. It was right at the very beginning and I thought, yeah, it's worth a punt. And I put my money and I got a couple of updates and then it all went quiet. And I must admit, I thought I'd been scammed, but out of the blue, about 2 weeks ago, a box turned up and it, well, first glances, I was very impressed. Now I've put it into a different bag because I like a slightly bigger bag, so I don't have to kind of roll it super tight when I'm done. And the original bag was a bit snug, so, but it's in here and I'll get it out and I'll show you what it is and I'll tell you what the specs are. So I've got it on my phone because there was no way I was ever going to remember this. So this is the Flextail TMR9ML, and it's the large tiny R09 slipping pad. So its dimensions are, it is 196 centimeters by 65 centimeters by 9 centimeters deep, and this is the bigger version, because when they first brought out the kind of trial one, the feedback was they were too small, they were too narrow, and they were too short. So this is their kind of revised version. It weighs 635 grams, and it comes with a built-in mini pump to pump it up, and the pump itself weighs, where are we? What is it? 33 grams. So the whole thing is 670 grams and it's got an R9 rating, and that's been tested at independent labs. So I believe that it is an R9, which I think a lot of people are quite doubtful about, because I think this is retailing now, because it's on the market now, at about 160, 170 quid. I'll put the actual figure there because I don't know what it is, but I think it's around about that sort of money. Certainly it's sub £200, and I think the highest rated Thermarest one is 8.5, and that's up in the kind of 400 quid range. So if this is as good as I say it is, this is a bit of a bargain. So what I shall do is I will take it out of the bag first and let you see what it looks like. So it's a fetching shade of green and what would you call that, luminous green, and it's got a built-in pump which you don't have to put in. So the pump is in here, that's the little pump there, and it is tiny. I mean, that's the size of my hand next to it. I mean, it is a tiny little thing, and you don't have to use this because it has got a conventional valve next to it. So the pump itself, I'm not showing you very well there, am I? The pump goes into the bigger hole there, but if you don't want to carry that, if you want to save the 33 grams that is the pump, you can just use the inflate deflate standard valve at the end. But for 33 grams I think it was worth a punt, and it fits in there. It has an O-ring seal, and that just sits on there. So what you do is you roll it out flat, and then you flick the little switch and that inflates. So what I'll do is I'll roll it out and I'll inflate it, and then I'll let you see it. There we go, that's it inflated. As you can see, it's quite a big pad. I mean, this isn't a little tent by any means. This is, you know, it is properly a two-man tent, and you know, you'd probably only just get 2 of these pads in here. It's a nice wide pad. It's the widest pad I own. So that's a sleeping pad, inflated, and first impressions are, well, it's a really big pad. It's very wide, and it fills my tent, so it's certainly long enough for me at 6'4". It doesn't appear to have that kind of crinkle, the kind of crisp bag thing going on that you get with some pads, and I'm not actually sure what they use for insulation, but I will find out. But my first impressions are I'm very pleased, and it really inflated very fast. Surprise! So that little pump does a really good job. The rest of the stuff I'm sleeping with is I've got a couple of these, the old Trekology inflatable pillars. They're a great standby pillar, and I think they're good. And my sleeping bag is actually a quilt. It's there we go. It's a one Tigris feather down one season quilt, and I've actually stitched what's that, about 8 inches at the bottom into a foot box, and the rest is open, and I use it as a quilt in my hammocks, but in the summer I use it as a sleeping bag as well. It's forecast to drop down to about 10 degrees tonight, so it should be more than ample. I'm probably going to end up sliding to the one side of the tent because I'm definitely on a slope here, but it should be all right. Now, I haven't bought any food with me tonight. Well, that's not true. I haven't bought any noodles with me, and I haven't bought a stove. I'm only going to get maybe another hour of daylight, and I know that I'm going to be leaving early in the morning. It's going to be heavy rain in the morning, and I'm just going to get up and bug out, and I'll get my breakfast when I get home. But to see me through the night, I've got some snacks. So I've got some iced party rings. Thank you, Mrs. P. I've got some nacho cheese flavoured tortilla chips. I've got some other stuff in here. Oh, and if I'm really struggling, if the cold night is burning the calories away, I've obviously got emergency deluxe rice pudding, and what's that? Some apple and cinnamon porridge bar. So I've got more than enough food because, well, I actually had my dinner at like 5 o'clock tonight, so I've got plenty. And I've got some tins of cola and a bottle of water. So I've got plenty to see me through the night. And really, I'm just going to sit here now. I've got, I don't know, about an hour, 45 minutes of light left. And I'm just going to chill out, watch the sun go down, and just have a relaxing evening. And I'll see you back in the tent when it's dark and it's time for bed. Well, it's just before 10 o'clock. Amazingly, I don't know if you can see how light it is. I mean, it's fully daylight, and I mean, there you go. 9, I think you can see that. 9, let's have another go. 9:58. Yeah, just before 10 o'clock, and fully bright light. The sun is still, well, it's dipping over there, but as you can see, as there's no clouds, it's still light, and we've probably got another hour's worth of light. We're a week past the solstice, and this far north, it stays light for a long time. And when it does go dark, it's not fully dark. I mean, it's not going to go dark tonight, but it'll be half light, and the GoPro will make it look a lot darker than it is. But actually, for the human eye, it dims slightly, but it doesn't go black. We don't get dark black nights at this time of year, which is pretty cool. It's one of the nice things about living this far north. So very soon, strangely, I'm going to go and lie in my tent and listen to my book and just chill out. The winds have dropped, but definitely the clouds are building behind me. And yeah, if the forecast is correct, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, we're going to get thunder and lightning. And if we do, I'll wake up and I'll put the camera on. But I'll see you back in the tent in a bit, chilling out, listening to my book. Well, that's me ready for my bed. It's about 11 o'clock. In fact, I think it's about 11:30. Still light outside. It's kind of crazy, really. And that's it. It's time for bed for me. I'm already realising that I'm camped on quite a bit more of a slab than I first thought. And I've had to put my Bergen at the one side of the tent in a kind of vain attempt to stop me sliding all the way down to the bottom of the tent. But yeah, I think I'm going to wake up pressed against the side of the tent because, yes, I'm on a bit of a slope. But hey, rookie mistake. You'd think I would know better by now, but it was about the only spot on the whole kind of plateau that was even close to flat. So you've got to take what you can get. And I didn't want to camp right up on the footpath up there. I think it'll be a bit too exposed for the wind, and also anyone walking their dog along there would have to literally step round my tent, and that's no good. So anyway, I'm going to sign off for the night. I'll see you in the morning, and if I get thunder and lightning in the middle of the night, I'll turn the camera back on, but if not, I'll see you when it's time to get up and get packed up. So I'll see you in the morning.
Well, good morning. All in all, not a bad night's sleep. I did spend some of it slipping off the pad, but I kind of put it diagonally across the tent, and that seemed to combat the slope a little bit, and that was it. It was good, and it's a comfy pad. I'm very impressed. It stayed up, which is a bonus, and it's nice and wide, and first impressions are it's a good one. Well, it's just before 6 and it's been raining since about 3, but it seems to have eased a little bit. It was absolutely chucking down at 3 o'clock this morning, but it sounds like it's just spitting, so it's probably the right time to strike camp and get out of here. So I'm going to get this tent down, get packed, and I'll see you back at the house.
There we go, all packed up, nothing left but, yeah, nothing left but flattened grass. So I'm going to get myself back to the van, get back home, and we'll do a wash up for the highs and lows of the camp. So I'll see you back at base. Well, that's me back home, and all in all, a really good camp. Very fortunate with the weather. It's absolutely drumming down with rain now and blowing a gale. So I think the weather forecast was a couple of hours out, but it was good because I managed to get up and get packed away and get back to the van before the rain and the big winds hit. So yeah, I was a bit lucky there. Did have a bit of a disaster taking the tent down. Yeah, I split one of the poles. I don't quite know how I did it, but I burst the end of that. I don't know if you can see that. Turn it around. But it's not a terrible disaster. I've actually got a spare pole. So I was converting one of my cheaper tents that's got fiberglass poles to aluminium poles. Bought these off eBay, and I got a couple of spares. So I will cut that one down to length. Isn't going to need much. It's only just a bit longer. Cut that down to length. You know, chamfer it off, and then I'll just thread the elastic through, and jobs are good. And so could have been a lot worse, but I did notice that in the pegs kit that came with the tent, there are 2 repair sleeves that you just, if you're in the middle of nowhere and you burst a pole like that, you slide it over the end, slide it up over the top, maybe hold it in place with a bit of tape to stop it moving, and it'll get you through the night. So good on Alpkit for putting repair kits as standard within their tents. Now, I hope you enjoyed that camp. I hope you enjoyed the history bit. I camped as close as I could to the submarine wreck without going out on a boat. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, if you could give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. And if you're not already subscribed, it'd help the channel if you click the subscribe button. So until the next one, I'll say ta-da. Ta-da a bit.